Hope you're ready. It'll be here any minute.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got a nice movie review for you. My first full extensive movie review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. As you see, I've got it totally in theme with some of the exclusive items from the Marvel Collector Core box from last month, just to get in the mood for it. Except for this is Dancing Baby Groot, which is apropos for the fact that we have the adorable Groot in this film. So let's get to the review. Just to lay down some rules here, I'll be giving a brief review in the beginning of this film, and when I get to the spoilers, and there will be spoilers,
What is he doing?
I will let you know. There'll be a graphic warning you about spoilers. So if you don't want to see the spoilers, you can stop the video there. If you've seen the film and you want to listen to the spoilers and maybe have thought a few things that you all out there have not thought of,
That's a really bad sign.
so let's get going with the review of this film, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 by Marvel Studios. Now, first off, I will say this. As a sequel, this was a nice compliment to the previous film, Guardians of the Galaxy, that came out in 2014, I believe it was. This film had a very different theme. As in the first one, it was an origin story. There was a lot of action to it. There was just complete zaniness. This film continues to that to a certain extent. What I liked about this film was, and I give credit to James Gunn on this, and hopefully this is the angle he was going for, and he took some chances on it, because usually there's always a worry about sequels need to be bigger, badder, more explosions. With this film, I think James Gunn was interested in finding the heart of the characters. And when I say the characters, I mean everyone across the board. I think there was a great job of sharing screen time, and there are a lot of characters in this film. There are some emotional things in this film. I was kind of surprised, taken back, by how emotional this film was compared to the previous one. Some critics may love it, some may say, okay, this is great, because there's always been a complaint in, and this is a shot at Marvel Cinematic Films, that these films don't always have an emotional tie.
See, you just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret.
Dude, come on. I think you're overreacting a little bit.
You must be so embarrassed.
This film had action, it had some good action, but it focused more on developing these characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed that, because it wasn't anything I expected. I was very afraid that it was going to be a cookie cutter of what the previous film is, so I enjoyed that Marvel, as I say, took a risk, because it could have been easier to just put action sequence, big sets, big sets, big sets, but they slowed the pace at portions of the film and really wanted to tell a story and take these characters out of their comfort space, because, as you see them in the previous film, they put up these big guards. They are not emotionally, they're not sound individuals, but together they become a family. And this film further builds on that concept of family.
You do is yell at each other. You're not friends.
No, we're family.
I believe that it was an enjoyable film, and I'm not going to get involved into the spoilers portion of the film, of the description of this film. So right now I'm warning you, spoilers, 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 spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, if you haven't seen the film, don't watch the rest of this video. If you have seen the film and you want to get more into the psyche of what this film was about, then please continue watching.
Dude.
So, starting off, and now we're talking about the film. I thought the opening sequence talking about the origins of how Peter Quill's mom and Ego met in Missouri, 1980. If you see the graphic, it says Missouri, Earth, like we don't know where it is, but I guess that's making fun of the fact that we have to be just so descriptive or following the pace of Civil War, where they had graphics explaining wherever they were all the time. Was interesting. I guess that's a new Marvel thing to do now, but it's fine, it's not a big deal. And talked about the romantic situation between Peter's mother and Ego, and Ego how he's got his plans planting this spore plant And you're kind of curious of, when you're watching it, you're always wondering, why is he putting this in the back of a Dairy Queen of all places? This is in a wooded area. Who's to know if someone won't pull it out of the ground or mess with it? But Peter's dad did what he did, and obviously Peter was the product of that union. Then jumping ahead 34 years, another big graphic. We see the Guardians getting ready for a big mission. They are doing a project for the Sovereign. They are not the most coolest people. They're very disciplined, supposedly superior race of individuals. Obviously they can't find their own battle against what they call an interdimensional creature. And I'll argue, how do they know the interdimensional creature was going to come take away their batteries? There were some questions in the film that you had to leave for happenstance, that okay, they must know that something's coming after their power source or it's come in the past, but it wasn't really clear how they knew that this creature was coming there to take their power cells, which are obviously very powerful. Peter was using some makeshift 1980s like video arcade equipment or something that was converted to detect the creature coming. And he did a great job with this because it really got to showcase Baby Groot.
I am Groot.
A very different character from what he was portrayed in the previous film. This whole dancing sequence, the use of the music was done well, I believe, in most parts of the film. I felt like they weren't as strong as they were in the previous one, because I guess we were already used to that certain scenes we're going to hear music, but that beginning open sequence was beautifully done. And I saw the film in 3D, and for me there was a lot going on in that open sequence with this monster they were fighting, and Baby Groot's in the forefront, he's dancing, doing all this crazy stuff. There's battles going on behind him, and it's hard to see. You want to see what's going on with the battle because the special effects look amazing, but at the same time, Baby Groot has captivated our hearts with his silliness. He's obviously grown up being a fond listener of Earth music, Peter Quill's music from the Awesome Mix Volume 2. It was so interesting how the character was portrayed, Baby Groot, because he was an angsty little, upset little guy. I mean, you saw him with those little rat-like creatures.
I am Groot.
He may be a product of the environment, knowing how Rocket is so volatile and how Drax can be, and it's interesting how he was emulating some of their attributes of how they were, but he was an interesting character because we probably assumed he'd just be cute and docile like the previous Groot was, the adult version, but obviously he was not.
That's my new ass.
I am Groot.
Let's just agree to never discuss this.
He's growing up. It's almost like and I believe he's not the same Groot that we knew from the previous film. He's just a regrowth spawn of him, and he's going through all these emotions all over again.
No, that's exactly what you just said. How's that even possible? Which button is the button you're supposed to push? Point to it. No!
Moving past that, that was an interesting layout scene. Getting the Sovereign, who they were, and I thought was really neat. And this has to be a James Gunn reference to growing up as a kid in the 70s or 80s, wherever he grew up. Was the Sovereign ships, their fleet, weren't actually piloted by them. They were remote controlled through these console systems, and it sounded like you were in a video arcade when they would shoot, blow up. It was like Gataga. It had those sound effects to it. If you grew up playing video games or being in a video arcade like I was, you understand what I'm talking about. If not, ask your parents. I guess I'm showing how old I am. Of course, we learned that we see this fleet of ships because Rocket ends up stealing some of their power source cells, which, remember that because that becomes important later in the film.
This is weird. We've got a Sovereign fleet approaching from the rear.
Why would they do that?
Probably because Rocket stole some of their batteries.
Dude!
Right. He didn't steal some of those. I don't know why they're after us. What a mystery this is.
All heck ensues. They get chased after them. Their ship gets thoroughly messed up. Drax becomes very heroic, helps them, and of course they crash on this planet. And what's interesting about this Marvel Cinematic Universe in space is when they do travel to other planets, they don't go the cliche, with Star Trek or Star Wars, where they hyper jump or light speed or anything like that. They use like wormhole bubbles that transport them from one place to another. I guess the best way to describe it. and they synchronize them to help them get to one planet that may be farther from another, which is this is a different way, I think an interesting way to explain how they travel to distant locations without comping out and just copying the concept from one franchise of films. They created their own idea. They crash on this planet, and before they do, they get saved by this egg-shaped looking ship with a guy just staying out there and blows up the remainder of the fleet of the Sovereign. Turns out that guy is Ego. They're wondering who this guy is. And what's interesting about the film is we didn't have to wait halfway through the film or 3/4 of the way to find out who Ego was, what he was about. Ego was eagerly seeking Peter Quill, his son, and lays it all out there so we don't go through the whole thing of figuring out, okay, what's this about, what's going on. We get straight to the point.
After all these years, I've found you.
And who the hell are you?
I'm your dad, Peter.
And the reason I believe this was done so that you could create this connection between Peter and his biological father, so that it builds towards the end of the film, which caught me by surprise. And I'll just jump to it right now because there's a lot of interesting points throughout the film. Part of the work that they did for the Sovereign to protect them from this interdimensional creature was they were going to get Nebula. The Sovereign had captured Nebula. Nebula probably came on their planet, or there was a bounty out for her. Something happened, but Nebula was their prisoner, and they've taken Nebula. And the plan was originally, after they've helped the Sovereign, they were going to return Nebula to Nova Prime. And Peter's father says, "Oh, I'll show you where I live," everything else, and Peter very eagerly, along with Nebula and Drax, go off with him, go to Ego, this beautiful planet, which they soon figure out is Ego. And they do a nice way of explaining in the film how Kurt Russell, who is the human form or the humanoid form, has created a sense of an extension of himself to be able to travel the cosmos. We meet Mantis, who's an empath, not a telepath. She particularly explains that. She tampers into all of their emotions at some point in the film, and they all have different effects. Of course, as we've seen in the trailers, Peter Quill professes his love for Gamora, and not in a normal sense. He's trying to get around it. He has feelings for her, but Gamora's kind of pushing him away. And I feel in the film they never resolve that. We know she has feelings for him, but she's not, this is more of a family situation for her. I don't know if they'll go more into it in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or not. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But we learn the big secret, and there's some big spoilers to this, is, I'll jump around a little bit here because there's a lot of different topics, was that Ego is not that great of a guy. He's not great of a dad. And when we find out that he's been, when he helps harness Peter's powers, because he mentions that Peter has the capability of using powers of a Celestial, that he dips into that. And ultimately find out that he wants to use Peter to create a interconnecting system for planets to expand his power and control in the universe. Hence, those little plant pods that he was planting on Earth. And the scary part of that is that during a battle sequence with Nebula and Gamora, because Nebula finds her way on the planet, that's another story we can talk about. They uncover this underground area of bones, all different alien bones. And Peter's dad, Ego, reveals the big secret, the big reveal that, I made with all these beings, and I had Yondu, because we saw in the first film that Yondu brought Peter there, kidnapped Peter, but we don't explain why he doesn't give him to Ego. There's a good reason. Yondu finds out that Ego, once he found out there's not compatibility to siphon power, or they don't have that gene to be a Celestial, he kills him off. Yondu wasn't going to give up Peter for that life, ended up raising him as his own son. And the shocker on top of that is that he confesses to Peter that he put a tumor in his mom's head to kill her, because he knew if he came back to Earth again, because he was in such love with her, that he would stay there permanently and he would not fulfill his master plan. And that, he ultimately, makes reference to a song. I think the song was Brandy, I think it was. And, you know, the father goes, yeah, and says, that's her, but the sea was calling me, and the sea was my ultimate plan to conquer the universe. And after that, everything breaks loose. And that's what I loved about this film was you saw another side of Peter Quill. You saw a different way of acting I've never seen in Chris Pratt, where he was very angry, upset, and it reminded me of what happened in Captain America Civil War. Tony Stark finds out how his mom died by the Winter Soldier, and he just loses it. Peter Quill loses it, and with the knowledge he has of this celestial power and how it's from the core of this planet, him and Ego go in this big battle, go at each other, and ultimately, as we know in the film, you've seen it, Rocket devises with those power cells. I mentioned earlier in this video, we're going to get back to those power cells he's got from the Sovereign, that he's going to use it as a bomb. They find Ego's core, which is this giant illuminating blue brain. With that all going on, of course, we have the relationship with Peter and Yondu. And if, also, other spoilers alert here is that unfortunately Yondu sacrifices himself for Peter as they're leaving the planet. What was cool was the space suit pods that were for the ship that they used that we saw earlier in the film. Drax is wearing it. It's almost like a clear exosuit setup that they can survive in space. Here, as they're escaping the planet, you know, they're trying to get to the ship, trying to get out, and he sacrifices himself and puts the spacesuit on Peter. There's no way they're going to get to him on time, and Yondu bites the big one. And it was a very emotional moment because this is a character that we ultimately may have not liked too much in the previous film, or we kind of dealt with him a little bit at the end of the first film because he helped the Guardians of the Galaxy with fighting the Kree. But we find out that Yondu is very regretful of things he's done, in light probably of the fact that after they had the Infinity Stones returned, he thinks about what he did with Peter, taking him off his home world, had to raise him, because he finds out Ego's a bad dude. So, also another character I want to talk about, and this is spoilers, is just, as Mr. Gunn did, he did a great job in tapping into the emotional set of these characters. We had a situation with Drax where Mantis is having a conversation with him looking, he talks about his daughter. And Drax is a very to-the-point person. He's how do I put this? I really like Dave Bautista's portrayal of him, even more so in this film because he really tapped into the different emotions of Drax. Drax is very straightforward. He hides his emotions. He's not very descriptive about it. He does a lot of humorous stuff. I think that's to hide the facade of how emotionally distraught he is inside. We know he's lost his wife and his daughter to Ronan the Accuser, and more so to a certain extent Thanos. But he talks about his daughter, and Mantis decides to touch him because she's intrigued, and obviously I think she has a thing for Drax, just the way they banter back and forth. And she emotionally cries and she's upset. And it's very genuine because you realize that Drax, this guy was a dad, he was a husband. He loved the women in his life and he lost them. And also he's a tough warrior, so he has to place this facade. And I thought that was such a good portrayal by Mr. Bautista. I think he did a great job on that.
Yeah, yes. I am a dancer, Gamora is not.
You just need to find a woman who is pathetic. Like you.
Thanks, buddy.
Do you need a hug?
No, I do not.
Oh, I thought I said no. You're welcome.
Another character I just want to go into is just, and this is more the character development, Rocket Raccoon. His insecurities brought out. He doesn't want to get close to people. He pushes them away because of just how, he hasn't had anybody. And it seems like Yondu knew his backstory because he brings it out in the movie and tells him, hey, you know what? You experimented. They really didn't love you, these scientists.
They were not looking at you funny. You got anger issues. Mature yourself.
And you've always pushed people away that you care about. Don't push these people away. And I think that's Yondu speaking from the heart, that he didn't raise Peter the way he felt he should, because ultimately at the end of the film, Peter says a line that, Ego was his father, but he wasn't his dad. And then we go into these whole flashback sequences, and the very end was beautifully done of the film. Just you know, Yondu gets almost like that historical, beautiful burial at sea in a sense. His body is broken down, dissipated into the stars, and all the Ravagers, all of them, they get a message from Rocket, telling them what he did, how he helped save the universe, because they've saved the universe for a second time, and Yondu was part of that, and even Nebula was part of that. And they honor him, you know, and it was a very touching thing that happened. It was an emotional part of the film because of the fact that if you're a father or your son, you have a close relationship with your parent, your dad, you understand how that is, and they really tapped into that. I was emotional thinking about that, and it was funny watching the film. It was like watching the young baby Groot and how emotional he is and everything else. It reminded me of my child and how he goes through his growing up's pains, and then you see the relationship of Peter Quill with his father, his biological father, being reconnected, which some people have. It was almost like James Gunn, and I don't know if this is from personal experience or just knowing people and dealing with that, is that he really tapped into that personal relationship with fathers and sons, which is a song that's used in the end, which is beautifully done. So Yondu's passed on, and the Guardians are left with kind of like what happens next. What happens next in the film? Their ship has been badly damaged. Ego's gone. Peter Quill's connection to these celestial powers are gone. I did like how Nebula, and I don't want to put this down in any way. I want to give it credit. The relationship between Nebula and Gamora is somewhat repaired. You know, Nebula tells her, you know what, Thanos used to tear me apart and put robotic parts on me because he used to set them off in fights against each other, and she could never beat Gamora. So he basically pulled her eyeball out of her head, put her robotic eyeball, took her brain out. I mean, you've seen Nebula, she's just humanoid and robotic parts put together. She said he, you know, ripped out her arm, and you think about it, this happened when she was young and a child. That's pretty traumatic for someone, and it sets them up to dislike this person that she says to her, I just wanted a sister. I want someone to help me out and defend me, because they both were being raised by a tyrant. So I really thought that was well done. I mean, Peter Gunn, you did a really good job on just developing each of these characters, and really, you know, it wasn't all full action like the previous film was. You were trying to tell a story, and I enjoyed that, because sometimes a lot of people, critics, and people complain that superhero films are just all constant action, and no character development. I think Christopher Nolan did a great job in The Dark Knight with character development. I thought The Winter Soldier did a really good job with character development. I mean, there's action in that film, but there's a lot of times where you sit back and you try to find out who these individuals are. This film is in the same vein. It did the same job, so I enjoyed it thoroughly. The end credits were so beautifully done. It was a very cool style of old 70s style look. Also, it had, if you're seeing these records, and I'll probably put an image up here called Blue Note Records. They had a particular style and look. It was very Motown-ish, earlier times of blues music. It was very stylized like that. Some of the credits, the names would change, the image would change, and you even saw two characters that I've never seen before in the films first show up. There was a gentleman who looked like a regular guy in a suit, not a suit, but just dressed up normal that was dancing. I don't know who that guy is. It's probably someone's dad or whoever, but props to you for putting your dad out there, whoever it was. It might have been one of the producers, I don't know, but he showed up. If anyone has an answer to me who that guy was, or if James Gunn, if you're watching this video, and I doubt you are because there's tons of these videos out there, but I'd like to know who that guy was, because he's got some moves, he can dance a bit. We also saw Jeff Goldblum's character that's going to be showing up in Thor Ragnarok. He was there in a little scene, because they did a cool thing where they had still images and the characters would dance. You saw all the characters dancing. I really thought they did a lot of, it's the best Marvel post-credits scene I've ever seen besides Iron Man 3. They did a good job of that. So I thought it was very cool. I thought it was well done. It was a thoroughly enjoyable film. So I hope you enjoyed those end credit scenes. There's a lot of cool stuff that went on with that. So this is the end of my review. It's gone long enough. If you like the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, please. I'm trying to put some more videos out. I may go into more details in a later Guardians of the Galaxy film, breaking down more of the film. And comment. Tell me what you think, what you loved about the film, what makes you want to probably go back and watch it again. I may go watch it again just to watch those end credits again, or see that first sequence with Baby Groot. I enjoyed the film that much. I hope to send friends and family with me to see it this time. But that's my review. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
I'm Groot.
What's that? He says, welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy. Only he didn't use frickin'.